Incontro tra le rappresentative nazionali della Repubblica Ellenica e della Repubblica Socialista di Cecoslovacchia. L'incontro sarà diretto dal signor Partridge, Gran Bretagna, coadiuvato dai segnalini signori White e Richardson, Gran Bretagna. Vi presentiamo le squadre. Repubblica Socialista di Cecoslovacchia, con il numero 21 Seman, 2 Barmoš, 3 Jurkemik, 4 Ondruš, 5 Gögh, 7 Kozák, 8 Panenka, 10 Masný, 11 Nehoda, 15 Vízek, 18 Berger. A disposizione dell'allenatore con il numero 12 Wojciech, con il 13 Lička, con il 14 Fiala, con il numero 9 Gajdůšek, con il numero 22 Čechety. Questa è la squadra della Repubblica Ellenica. Con il numero 1 Konstantinou, con il 2 Kyrastas, con il numero 3 Jozef, con il 4 Kapsis, con il numero 5 Firos, con il numero 6 Livakinos, con il 7 Terzanis, con il numero 16 Kuis, con il 20 Anastopoulos, con il 19 Kostikos, con il numero 15 Mavros. A disposizione con il numero 21 Pupakakis, con il 13 Xantopoulos, con l'8 Nikoloudis, con il 10 Galakos, con il numero 18 Nicolau.
Scorching day with Czechoslovakia after that win for West Germany earlier this evening, finding their grip on this European Championship slipping away. And tonight they really need an emphatic victory and some unlikely help on Tuesday from the team they play tonight, Greece. A small crowd here in the Olympic Stadium for two reasons really. The game is being shown live on Italian television, and there was also a lot of general disappointment with the performance of the Czechoslovakians in that opening game against West Germany. What support there is here, though, is all for the Greeks, massed away to the right, out of your picture at the moment. As we look at the Czechoslovakian side, and as expected, Lička, who took the blame for West Germany's goal on Wednesday, loses his place in goal to Stanislav Seman. He wins his second cap. Also in is Berger in midfield, and Marián Masný, who's been out of form and fitness, is back in the attack. And there are plenty of those flags around the stadium. The blue and white of Greece, the real outsiders, but very proud of their performance against Holland. And once the national anthems are completed, I'll ask Ron Atkinson, who's with me here in the commentary box, for his thoughts on tonight's game.
Well, the Czechs have got to show far more attacking ideas than they did the other night against the Germans, and I would fully expect tonight to see their skipper Ondruš being given far more licence to come forward from the back. I felt he was a little bit restricted against the Germans in the first match. For their part, we saw the Greeks training last night, spoke to their manager for a while, and they're fully confident. They have the feeling tonight they can get a good result for their country, and by possibly trying to outrun the Czechs.
The Greeks, in fact, were very, very disappointed with the manner of their defeat. As we look again at the Czechoslovakian side, but the Greeks felt into that match, remember, really feeling the underdogs and not sure whether they really deserve the right to be on the same field as a team like Holland. But they've got all that out of their system now, and they're really looking forward to this game against Czechoslovakia. We hope we'll be able to show you the Greek team in a moment. It's the same one, apart from one change that played against Holland. Arrizoglu, who was injured in that game, is out of the side, and Anastopoulos, who came on, the number 20 there, came on as substitute, now gets his place in the starting lineup. Kostikos there, the number 19, passed a late fitness test on an injured knee to take his place in the attack. And if one or two of those Greek names and Greek faces might be a bit unfamiliar to you, you'll surely recognise the man in the middle there, Partridge, who is assisted tonight by two English linesmen, Clive and the back pass from Iosipides for Vassilios Konstantinou, who gave away that penalty by which Greece were beaten on Thursday. Looking for Kostikos, and here's Anastopoulos, who made such an impact when he came on as substitute, and a player that the crowd really took to their hearts down in Naples. And the Czechs come forward with Kozák again. Kapsis getting in quickly for Greece, but only as far as Ondruš. And as Ron was saying, he'll have much more licence in this game to push forward, the captain of Czechoslovakia. And Vízek right in there. It might come for Nehoda. Certainly, Czechoslovakia went into their first game really settling for a draw, and it was tactics that in the end cost them dear. And if one or two boos you might be hearing back home are going up for them, it's really because of that performance on Wednesday. All the supporters, I say, here for the Greeks. And here's Mavros for them, on for little Anastopoulos. Mavros going into the centre for a possible return ball. But Greece got the first corner. Certainly, Ron showing no inhibitions in these opening minutes.
No, the lad Anastopoulos looks very much as if he wants to get involved, if he wants to attack the defenders, similar to the way we saw the Spanish team start off the other night, and that's encouraging from their point of view.
Kapsis, who hit the woodwork with that late header against Holland, is right inside the goal area as Anastopoulos bends the corner in towards Mavros, and the goalkeeper Seman in trouble with really the first thing that he's had to deal with. The Czechs very concerned about their goalkeeping position, and not really a convincing start from the man who came here as the number 2 choice. But a possible break here for Czechoslovakia. Vízek going into the middle, the ball with Nehoda, and it comes for Vízek. Can he work a shooting position? It was Kapsis who got out quickly to stop him. And in the end, it goes for a throw to Czechoslovakia, which Koloman Gögh will take. Masný is right in there trying to guide it on. And the header from Kozák. And Kostikos getting a good touch there for Greece. Piros playing it forward, and Ondruš cuts it out, and Ondruš again.
You know, Martin, there's a general school of thought that the Czechs are going to really score a hatful of goals tonight. And very often, that's one of the hardest things possible. Particularly in view of the fact that the Greeks have got nothing to lose. They'll block it up, and if the Czechs don't get something early, there's a very real possibility they'll become frustrated.
Well, here's Panenka playing it in. Ondruš is right in there, and here's Berger. And Barmoš looking to get behind the defender, but having to turn back onto his left foot for the cross. And it comes down towards Vízek. Masný, who's down. Really, Jozef Vengloš hoping for a performance tonight out of Marián Masný. Well, Panenka is over the ball at the free kick, and he's shown a real willingness to try his luck from this sort of range. Vízek and Berger on the far post, with Nehoda and Ondruš. Well, just the start that Czechoslovakia wanted. We're in the 6th minute, and they get the first goal. Panenka, who has a good record of scoring in international football from midfield, and so often from that sort of range. That'll be a free kick for Nehoda's foul on Kyrastas. And one wonders how the Greek confidence will stand up to the disappointment of going behind early. And that looked like a push by Ondruš. But Partridge not impressed by the way that Kostikos went down.
Well, we were saying earlier that it's essential for the Czechs to get an early goal. They've got just that. Fully expect them now to really dominate the game, and expect them to win very, very comfortably.
Well, here's Ondruš for Vízek, and now Kozák. Barmoš trying to provide the width on the right, receiving the ball under pressure. And here's Kuis, plays on the left-hand side of the Greek midfield, although he's predominantly plays on the left-hand side of the Greek midfield, although he's predominantly a right-footed player. Berger getting back for Czechoslovakia. And here's Kozák. Berger again, who is in the Czech Olympic squad to go to Moscow, as is Vízek. Tidied up by Piros. And now Kuis. In for Tetsanidis, the 35-year-old in the Greek midfield, wearing number 7 there. And it's Livathinos who is just holding the right calf, but his teammates taking the free kick quickly. This is Iosifides. Anastopoulos going for the header and then finding the ball dropping back towards him. A couple of feet away.
Yes, the big central defender made a right mess of that. Indeed, a let up for the Czechs, and just as we were saying that I felt that the game was going to go all their way.
One mustn't forget, of course, that the Greeks qualified in some style. They beat Finland 8-1, which was a record victory for them in all internationals. Hungary 4-1, and then Russia in the decider by 1-0. All those games, of course, at home. But there is a school of thought in the game that Czechoslovakia don't travel too well either. Here's Ondruš. Masný switching to the near side. And Gögh looking to pick Masny's run out again, but it's a throw to Czechoslovakia. Partridge waving play on as Masný went down. The first time, but not the second time. Tetsanidis, the offender. And immediately Panenka is there to take charge of proceedings. And with his right foot, of course, he's quite capable of bending the ball in to threaten the goalkeeper again, although Ondruš on the far side will probably be hoping for the ball to be hung up a little bit towards him. And it comes in fact, towards Nehoda, where Kyrastas, though, got the header away. This is Kostikos dueling with Barmoš on the far side. And Kostikos, for a man who was very doubtful yesterday, showing strength and aggression, but losing out in the end. Ondruš still in there. Mavros. Tertsanidis, and a neat ball forward too for Anastopoulos to try and use his pace. There really was no one arriving in the middle had he been able to pull the ball back, but a lot to admire in the pass from Tertsanidis. Who takes the corner himself. Kyrastas is right in there at the near post. But perhaps a break on here for Czechoslovakia with Vízek.
Yes, there's a possibility then he should have buried that. Full marks to Masný, his appreciation, his vision. He spotted his teammate completely unmarked in a great situation. And Nehoda looks to be carrying on where he left off on against the Germans. He's not really at his best in this tournament up to yet.
Of course, in fairness to Nehoda, he too has been hampered by injury in his preparation. But certainly joy for Czechoslovakia when they pushed forward quickly against the Greek defence, which is fairly experienced in terms of international caps, but really hasn't been tested out very often against this calibre of opposition. Here's Tertsanidis. Kyrastas breaking on the right, away from Mavros. Forward from Kyrastas, the Greek captain.
Well, this sometimes can happen when you get somebody like Ondruš, who's got attacking ideas tonight. He possibly forgets that he's got to defend, and he's just been very, very severely punished for it.
So here's Masný for Czechoslovakia. And the Greek players, who tend to play a lot from the heart, will surely be inspired by that. Jurkemik across to play it forward towards Vízek. Here's Kyrastas. Masný letting it run out of play, and then finding that Clive White, the linesman on this near side, has indicated a throw to Greece. Anastopoulos, who is only 22 years old and has quite lately burst on the scene in Greece, but has interested one or two clubs from outside of the country. Cosmos of New York are reported to have an interest in him. Barmoš with the back pass, and Seman in only his second international. Here's Masný. A touch by Panenka, and the back pass that almost lets Nehoda in from Livathinos. But all of a sudden that miss by Nehoda, assuming greater importance. Here's Gögh. Taken up by Kozák. Panenka finding it difficult to withstand a challenge. And a free kick in the end, given against Panenka. And the Greeks tried to take it quickly and rather wasted it. Here is Panenka for Berger. And now Masný. Nehoda waiting in the middle. And Masný trying to wriggle away through. As he went down, the ball was won cleanly by Kyrastas, and Anastopoulos sets the crowd roaring again. Now Mavros, who favours the left foot, and I think shooting was uppermost in his mind. Panenka, though, for Czechoslovakia, and the Greeks are outnumbered on the far side with Kozák and Berger. And here's Berger, and there was no one up to give him support, but the Greeks just looking a little naive in defence at that moment. But Berger's prod went unattended across the face of the goal.
Well, the Greeks are giving us the impression now that they're really enjoying the game. They're not the most disciplined team in the world, as we've just seen from that situation. But quite frankly, they're giving the Czechs enough problems up to yet, but I still feel the Czechs are going to take complete control of the game in the next few minutes.
Flick on for Kostikos to chase. And here is Anastopoulos again. Kostikos and Mavros are in the middle. And Iosifidis was coming up on the far post as well. And the shot from Livapinos passing wide. But another show of confidence from the Greeks. The Greek manager, Alkaitas Panagoulias, was telling me that he heard back in the whole of Greece, things came to a complete standstill when Greece were playing their opening game, and I should imagine it's much the same tonight. But here's Masný looking for Nehoda. Tertsanidis. And a free kick given away by Ondruš, who is noticeably now doing more defending. The foul was on Mavros. Kuis has gone forward, and it's Kuis who jumps. And the challenge by Barmoš was enough to make sure that he didn't make connection. Kozák.
Hello.
Away from Iosifidis. And the header from Jurkemik. Taken up for Greece again by Kostikos. And that wasn't too far away. And the Greeks really with their tails up at the moment. And Kostikos, in the end, I suppose, 2 or 3 yards too high.
Well, surprisingly enough, at the moment, they're getting completely outplayed in midfield, are the Czechs, and that's an area where I thought they'd have had their real strength. Panenka, who's one of their better players, has not really, apart from scoring a goal, hasn't really put himself about too much, and in fact has shown a little bit of a lack of appetite for the game. Something, whether he feels that the chances of going to the final have gone, but there's still an awful lot to play for their side.
Well, here is Panenka with some space. Won't come for Masný. It will come for Mavros. Anastopoulos trying to guide it on past Gögh. And it's interesting that the Czechs are already warming up a substitute, who is Lička from the league champion Spanik Ostrava. But here's Vízek. Whether in the end that early goal might have worked run against Czechoslovakia, given them a full sense of confidence.
Well, it may have done. I'm just wondering whether Ondruš is staying at the back now through design, or whether, in fact, they've become a little bit worried about the two front lads of the Greeks, who both look very, very capable indeed.
Nehoda is right in here. And it was just touched away by Ilcipides, only as far, though, as Vízek. Space for Panenka, who may well get behind Greece here. And the driven cross dropping onto the back of Konstantinou's net. And the Greeks at the moment having a little argument amongst themselves. And Jozef Vengloš there in the all-blue tracksuit with the number 13, Verner Lička. It was Berger who was over there and who appears to be limping. Here's Panenka. Kyrastas there in front of Nehoda. And the substitution will take place. On comes Lička, and Berger, an early departure just halfway through this first half. And a disappointment for him, getting his chance in this Czechoslovakian side. Livathinos. And Partridge wanting to see the free kick taken from the correct position, and also having a word with Lička.
It's refreshing to see the Greeks leaving people at the park even when they're under pressure at the back. They've always got at least two men forward, and at times three. And in many ways, this might well be the reason that Ondruš is having to stay back as the spare man at the back now.
Oh, Kostikos is right in there, and so too is Mavros. Play on, says the referee. But a long free kick, and again the Czechs looking embarrassed in the air.
Czechoslovakia, il numero 18, Berger, è stato sostituito dal numero 13, Lička.
Here's Panenka. For Masný, with Nehoda in the middle. And it comes towards Nehoda, and gratefully hooked away by Kuis. But Barmoš with the chance to plant it back in again. And pushing by Zdeněk Nehoda, who on Wednesday and tonight hasn't really gone in on crosses with the confidence of a man who feels he's fully fit. The header from Jurkemik. And here's Iosipides. Mavros is in the middle and going to meet it at the near post. And Anastopoulos was so nearly in for his second and is so annoyed with himself. That was Mavros who didn't make connection, and nor did Anastopoulos coming in behind him. But this lack of confidence between defenders and goalkeeper in the Czechoslovakian defence again really in evidence. And we were a whisker away there from a real sensation. And the goal coming on the counter-attack, 5 minutes gone, and it's Czechoslovakia 2, Greece 1.
I think the Greek sweeper must take a hell of a lot of responsibility for that goal. His position on the through ball was way out. And in fact, just previous to that, he'd already got himself into a fourth position, nearly give the Czechs an early goal. But,
Vízek, who is, as I said earlier, in the Olympic squad as well for Czechoslovakia, but has proved himself as a striker who can score goals at the very highest level. And here's Terzanidis. Mavros going in for the cross, away by Barmoš. Now Panenka, picking away through. Lička ahead of him. And here's Barmoš. Cross too deep for Nehoda, but Vízek might get there. Trying to set up Marián Masný, and play on again, says Pat Partridge, and Masný holding his left ankle. And the whistle has gone, which will enable Masný to get some treatment. Ron, you saw Czechoslovakia train last night, and I know you thought it was a very impressive session, yet what do you think of the way they've actually come out and played?
Although they're leading, Martin, I'm very, very disappointed in the way they're playing at the moment. Last night they looked tremendously impressive, looked a side that was going to go about the business, looked a side that knew they'd got to do something special to have any sort of chance of staying in the competition. Whether or not the German results having an effect on them, I don't know. Having said that, you know, they've still got an awful lot to play for, this third and fourth place, even if they don't feel they can make the final.
And of course, there is a combination of circumstances that could still get them to the final, but it would need Greece to come up with a real upset against West Germany on Tuesday in Turin. So it's by no means over for the reigning European champions. But here's Jurkemik. Space ahead of him, but not connecting cleanly on the left foot. Czechoslovakia being watched tonight, incidentally, again by Mike England, the Welsh team manager, with Czechoslovakia in the same World Cup group as Wales. A little touch by Panenka. And the ball again, getting Vízek in, Nehoda waiting in the middle, and deflected by Firos for a corner to Czechoslovakia.
What's happening over there is that the Greek left-back is getting himself into advanced positions. The sweeper's not really coming across and blocking off the space, and the Czechs, when they do decide to penetrate, have got an awful lot of space to put in telling balls.
And the shot from Panenka. He really does fancy his chances from that sort of range. And it needed a good save from Konstantinou. Kostikos. And he's trying his luck as well. And getting good power. Although the angle was against him, but nothing wrong with his ambition. With half an hour gone, and an entertaining half an hour it's been, with Czechoslovakia leading Greece here by 2-1. Here's Livastinos for Kuis, and Iostafidis, as Ron Atkinson was saying, wanting to go forward again, the left back. Lička coming short to receive the ball from the goalkeeper. Here's Masný. Turning Kyrastas, who nevertheless blocks the attempted cross and is tripped from behind by Marián Masný.
One of the problems the Greeks might encounter later in the game is, by virtue of the fact they're leaving 3 people up the field, is throwing an awful lot of work onto their 3 midfield players who are having to go up and down the park constantly. And I'm just wondering whether, in fact, they can maintain this for 90 minutes. It's asking an awful lot for them to do.
Barmoš. Here's Barmoš again. Ondruš trying to get ahead of him, and it was Ondruš he was looking for with the pass that was intercepted by Kuis. And here's Livastinos. Kept in by Masný. Now Nehoda for Lička. And Panenka turning, and Masný is offside. Although for a moment it looked as though he was going to be clean in for number 3. And Greece, really with nothing to lose, certainly taking their life into their hands at the back, which is slightly out of character from the way they played to reach these finals. Have a reputation as a side who defend well in a 4-4-2 formation and are hard to beat and are particularly resilient, very influenced by English football. Here's Kozák. Kyrastas getting in for Greece. Vízek. Nice turn from him. But just a little bit of overindulgence on the ball. The Czech side really have suffered a little this season because 7 of their players tonight come from the famous Dukla Prague and Slovan Bratislava sides, who have had disappointing league seasons. The champions Baník Ostrava. It's only Lička who's come on as substitute, who is from Baník in this side out tonight. Here's Nehoda. For Masný. Panenka and Nehoda are in the middle. And Masný gets a free kick. A siding challenge from Kyrastas.
The last few minutes have been the best the Czechs have had in the game, and they look now as if they're starting to just pick at the Greeks. And I think if the Greeks are going to try and stay in the game, it's very, very important they survive until half-time without conceding another goal.
Well, they had problems again from this free kick. Ondruš has gone to the near post. And it's set up here for Jurkemik, and a complete miss kick, which might be kept in play by Barmoš. A deep across this time. Ondruš trying to make something of it. And Anastopoulos just nudging Panenka to the ground, but getting away with it. Breaking ahead of him. Nehoda going on, outnumbered in the end. Worth remembering that football in Greece has only recently gone to full-time professionalism, and this generation of players still have certain habits of the part-timers. Here's Masný. And the Czechs had a lot of men forward, but the pass was angled away from them. Kuis. Forward from Gögh. And collected by Josephides. Here's Kuis. Again using the long ball, and a free kick given to Greece for the challenge by Ondruš on Anastopoulos. Partridge was telling me before the game that he wasn't really concerned about having any problems with the Czechs as in the matter of discipline. Certainly confirmed that he didn't speak with the Czechs as in the matter of discipline. Certainly confirmed that he didn't speak their language.
Martin, I honestly can't believe how much trouble the Czechs are having from any ball that's played into their box. One of the characteristics of their game is very, very ultra good defenders. And at this moment in time, every ball... Dare I say it, it looks very much as if they're trying to commit suicide at the back, a game that they should be winning comfortably.
Here's Barmoš. Given away by Panenka. Given back by Iosifides. Kozák. Here's Panenka again. Now Vízek, as the Czechs try to work a shooting position with Nehoda. He tried to turn when there was no room to do so. Just to pick up your theme, Ron, it's been reported in the Italian press here that Roma are very interested in signing Ondruš, and I wonder if they've got representatives here tonight.
Well, knowing how the Italians like defenders to be very, very good defenders, I wouldn't think they'd be over the moon about the lad tonight. Having said that, I think it's fair to point out, without a big crowd being here, I think there are probably players in the Czech side that may be suffering from the little bit of lack of atmosphere that's around at the moment. It would seem a little bit strange to them, I should imagine.
Well, all the atmosphere is favouring Greece, with their own supporters and all the neutral voices on their side. Here's Masný. Across for Barmoš. Nehoda is waiting in the middle, so too is Panenka. It's Vízek who's trying to pick a way through. And the linesman on the far side, David Richardson, signalling that it's a free kick to Czechoslovakia. With 5 minutes to go to half-time. Curled in by Panenka. Might come for Vízek. Panenka again. Vízek again. The Czechs trying the central route, but finding it blocked for the moment. Kozák. And here's Anastopoulos. For Kostikos. Mavros is in the middle, but Kostikos, as we've seen, has always wanted to try his luck. In the end, running a little too far. Terzanidis. Anastopoulos, who covered a lot of ground to receive the little ball in from Kyrastas, and causing more problems with his willingness to take men on. And I think that's a quality that everyone has been talking about that was certainly lacking in the opening round of games, but things in this European Championship now really coming to life. Lička, a little ball inside, and it wasn't a very good one towards Ondruš, taken up by Terzanidis. And just too long for Mavros. Do you think this problem, Ron, with their goalkeeper has generally unsettled Czechoslovakia at the back?
It may well have done, because in the first 15 minutes he didn't look at all safe, and bearing in mind they probably feel that they were cost a goal by their keeper on against the Germans. It's not helping them to settle, but I think there's an awful lot of casualness between the two central defenders.
And here's Masný trying to inject something into the attack, but failing to do so. The Greeks, in fact, were out here for 10 days, staying at the hotel now occupied by England. But they're caught again on that far side by Vízek. Nehoda is in the middle. If Vízek can slide it across towards him, and he couldn't. And in the end, Firos got it out. And Greece nearly punished in the manner in which they conceded the second goal. Jurkemik. A good positive run here from Masný. Brings the Czechs a corner with under 2 minutes now to go to half-time. Nehoda in the middle. Masný right in on the line. And again, they work it short for Jurkemik, who got power this time, but not accuracy. And a wry glance from Partridge, because the ball didn't miss him by too much.
I think the most pleasing thing about the first half, Martin, has been the performance of the little number 20, Anastopoulos. He's shown a willingness to run at people, willingness to beat people. And for me, he's been as entertaining a player as we've seen in the championships up to yet.
Only in the side as we move into the last minute tonight because of the injury to Ardizoglu, but rather because Panagoulias, the Greek coach, wanted to go for a little bit more experience in the opening match. Livafinos beaten to it by Kozák. Here's Vízek. As the whistle goes for half-time, the first half that... Yes, welcome back to Rome, and we were saying at half-time too, I think, Ron, that we feel that there'll be some more goals in this game. But can I put you on the spot? You've been going on about Anastopoulos and his qualities. Everyone's buying foreign players now. Is he the sort of player that West Bromwich Albion might be interested in?
Well, I think what we'll try and do after the game, Martin, is see if we can smuggle him out with us. On a more serious note, certainly, he has looked, as I said, he's looked certainly as good as any front player I've seen in the competition up to yet.
It looks as though, in fact, the Greeks are making a substitution at half-time. The number 10, Galakos, who made a brief appearance in the game against Holland, is on. And we're just checking to see who the player is who's gone off. While we do that, Ron, about the defensive disappointment, really, in the Czech side.
Yes, it's been incredible, really. I would expect Josef Vengloš to have had...
Who's gone off to be replaced by Galakos, who's gone into midfield, although he plays for his club, Olympic Piraeus, as a striker. Another look there at the Czech side, but the reminder that Berger, the number 18, has gone off the field and has been substituted by Lička, who's wearing 13. And it's Lička there with the header, but he was pushing in onto Galakos, and the free kick goes to Greece. Galakos, whose first name is Elias, but is known to all the other players as Mike. So Kapsis playing it forward, and it's Galakos who favours his left foot, who was trying the shot. Livafinos. Taken up by Panenka. Lička breaking ahead of him. Here's Kozák. Nice interchange between Barmoš and Vízek, and Barmoš going on until Kapsi stepped in. Here's Mavros. Kostikos tussling there with Jurkemik, and the free kick goes to Greece. Galakos back for Iosifidis. And now Firos. Cut out by Gögh. And taken up by Lička. Trying to play it early forward for Nehoda, who's made a good run across. And it goes behind for a goal kick. The 3 English officials fly back tomorrow, although, of course, Pat Partridge might come under consideration for refereeing the final, should England not get there. He made it clear to me before the game that he hopes he isn't in the reckoning and that England do. Here's Panenka. Little shuffling stride of his. Getting it back from Masný. Panenka again. Trying to work an experienced triangle on that far side. But here's Iosifidis. For Firos. Galakos. Anastopoulos losing out to Gögh's challenge, but he's such a lively little character that he's won it back again. Mavros doing the chasing, but it was always in vain.
Full marks to the Greeks at this moment in time. They're playing now basically with three defensive players, and they're pushing everybody else forward. And certainly, since the onset, the Czechs haven't really been able to establish the pattern they had just before half-time.
So Czechoslovakia go forward again with Jan Kozák for Gögh. Here's Kozák once more, and Masný. The Czechs putting their passes together a little better now. Nehoda is in the middle, but there's a little bit of overindulgence around the edge of the penalty area. Anastopoulos. And this is Kyrastas. Mavros ahead of him. Anastopoulos as well. He was looking for Mavros. They really are showing some resilience. And it may be even more surprising when I tell you that when they were over here preparing in Asti, they lost to a local representative side in a full-scale practice match. Here's Lička. Panenka slipping it through, and high and wide from Marián Masný. Masný, Ron, really hasn't looked the player in this tournament that we expected him to be.
No, I've been very disappointed with Masný, and also with Nehoda for that matter. Substitute Galakos come on, and he's certainly, he's not come on in any defensive role at all. He's pushing forward as well, and that's really pushing Ondruš, making Ondruš, as we said earlier in the first half, he's not been allowed to break forward. He's having to stay right at the back now.
So here's Vízek for Czechoslovakia, who still lead Greece by 2-1. Vízek once more. An early ball from Barmoš. It might come down for Masný. And now Lička. But as a manager, Ron, the attitude, I'm sure people watching back home will wonder quite how an international side like Czechoslovakia can give the indication, at least to us watching, that their attitude is wrong.
Well, when you say wrong, I think we might be taking a little bit away from the Greeks there. I think what's probably happened, they were the reigning champions. They realised that they're not going to retain that title, and I think psychologically that must play a big bearing in it. I think if they were playing Germany tonight with a full house, they'd really be going.
Well, they go forward again with Masný. Can he find a way through here? He was looking for Nehoda. And there was some holding by Zdeněk Nehoda, who gets a little ticking off out of your picture from Pat Partridge, the number 11 there. Nehoda, for 2 successive years, the Czech Footballer of the Year. It'll be a throw to Greece. A little touch looking for Anastopoulos. Mavros with the flick. And again, the Czechs hustled out of it on the ball. And Galakos letting fly with his left foot. And Seman finding it coming straight to him and getting a good sight of it. But here's Panenka. Kozák. Nehoda trying to turn, trying to set up. In the end, Panenka. And the decision is a goal kick, or maybe there was an offside as the Czechs were appealing for a corner.
Although we've been making comments about the size of the crowd, it's been fair to say that the Greek supporters have been right behind their side since the onset. However, they seem as if they're just starting to die a little bit. The fans are perhaps losing a little bit of faith. You know, nothing like a goal now for stirring the whole game up.
Well, certainly no signs that the Greek players are losing any faith. Here's Vízek, though, for Czechoslovakia. Into Anton Ondruš. Partridge playing the advantage. Wide from Lička. And here's Masný. Ondruš is waiting in the middle. And it was just touched away from him. He's repositioned on the far post as it is now with Vízek. But here's Kostikos for Iosifidis. 10 minutes into the second half. Livastinos. Now Anastopoulos. Galakos trying to switch it wide to this near side where Kuis had made a good run. Forward from Kozák. Vízek sitting wide on the right in this second half. And now Panenka. But it breaks down for the Czechs. And who's back there tidying things up but little Anastopoulos. And a sensible ball forward too. He really does seem to have energy to burn. Anastopoulos again. Vízek has Masný breaking ahead of him. And Kozák here in support. A little touch there for Lička. Lining it up on the left foot, and not too far away, as the Greeks rather stood off. But a more convincing break than from Czechoslovakia.
Yes, as we were saying in the first half about the Greek midfield players had worked tremendously hard and were finding it difficult to sort of keep contact with the Czechs when the Czech broke. And I think as the game goes on and on, that will become more and more apparent.
We're looking at the number 13, Xanthopoulos, whose presence on the field won't add to the ease of pronunciation. But Kostikos goes off, who was carrying that injury. And it may be that they'll push Galakos further forward. To play up alongside Mavros. And a little touch in towards Mavros. Put away by Ondruš. Here's Gögh, trying a little run of his own. Kozák. For Lička. Nehoda and Vízek ahead of him. And Barmoš making a better angle for the cross, looking for Nehoda, and too long for him. And Nehoda showing perhaps a little of his frustrations as we look at Jan Fiala warming up for Czechoslovakia. But that may not be so significant because all their substitutes are up going through a programme of exercises at the moment. But here come Greece with Kuis. Kozák, who does a lot of good, unspectacular work as the defensive midfield player for Czechoslovakia, the number 7. Panenka. Here's Masný. Lička and Nehoda in the middle. Panenka moving into his own shooting range, but forced to play the ball wide. Barmoš. The Greeks pen back at the moment. Vízek. Barmoš trying to get to the dead ball line, but the signal is a goal kick.
Martin, this half I've been watching the Czechoslovakia back four, and they seem to have adopted a strict man-for-man, leaving Ondruš right out the back, which is their normal way of playing. First half, they seem to just go anywhere they like, but second half looks like Vengloš has got to them and told them they've got to stick with people, got to mark tight, got to give the Greece front three some respect.
Well, they've certainly earned that respect, and they've also earned the cheers from their supporters that are still ringing out. Spiros stepping in quickly for Greece, and then Anastopoulos. The substitute Xanthopoulos. But here's Kozák. With half an hour remaining. And still Czechoslovakia leading Greece by 2-1. With Gögh. Here's Masný. And again, the attempt to play a little 1-2 around the edge of the box breaks down for them. Galakos breaking ahead of Anastopoulos. Livafinos. But it's a free kick to Greece.
Martin, before the game, the manager, Panagoulis, was sort of saying that he expected his side to try and outrun the Czechs. He thought that...
Wrong. Panagoulias also said that it was very unusual for Greek players to play a number of games in a short period of time, so he was a little bit concerned too about how they would react to that.
Yes, that may have been...
So 17 minutes into the second half, the goal that might finally break the Greeks. A little hold up while Jurkemik went to the bench to get a little bit of treatment. And we can tell you that the crowd here in the Olympic Stadium in Rome is 9,000 tonight. To reiterate that the game is going out live on Italian television. And by staying at home, of course, the public have been able to see both matches. The feet high by Koloman Gögh on Anastopoulos. Do you fear now, Ron, that the Greeks might crumble in this final phase of the game?
Yes, I think there's every chance that could happen. The problem they've got, of course, is they've used both their substitutes as well, and they're not in a position to bring fresh people on. But there looks to be a lot of people with tired legs now. They've given everything, and I'd be most surprised now if the Czechs didn't add at least another couple to that.
Well, here's Kyrastas for Greece to Mike Galakos. Always will want to keep it on his left foot. And draw some applause from the crowd for his work. Tidied up by Jurkemik. Here's Panenka. And another positive break by the Czechs. And Konstantinou in a race with Nehoda. A race that in the end is won by the ball. Well, the Greeks have certainly achieved something here tonight. They didn't score away from home in their qualifying games. So in some senses, they've broken their duck tonight. Here's Kyrastas. Kapsis. Cut out again by Kozák, but he gives it away. And Anastopoulos finds Mavros, who is fractionally offside. Stanislav Seman, the goalkeeper, comes from the Lokomotiv Kosici side. Here's Panenka. Now Vízek, who's been much quieter in the second half. Kozák. Kozák again to Lička. The Czechs patiently probing for an opening that's denied them by Firos. But given away by Xanthopoulos, who gets another chance here. As the Greeks try to break forward quickly. And no one quicker on their side than Anastopoulos. And it took 3 to stop him. And you could sense just a little bit more anxiety in the Czechs when Anastopoulos is on the ball. Panenka, who is beginning to emerge now as the Czech general after really struggling to get into the game early on. Barmoš. Here's Kozák. Barmoš again. Kozák again. Lička has gone to the far post, but Masný and Nehoda crowded out through the middle. Time now for Galakos. Jurkemik doing enough to force it out of play. In fact, a free kick given. Xanthopoulos. All the way back to Kapsis. The Czechs content to defend at the moment. Kuis is right in there. And he makes those runs quite well, coming from midfield to use his height, almost in the manner, Ron, of Martin Peters.
I was just going to say, if there's anyone it would remind you of, it would be Martin Peters. That was the typical run that he used to make for England. I think for the remaining, what have we got left, 20 minutes or so, it looks very much as if the Czechs are now going to be content to knock the ball about, make the Greek lads run. They know they've run them off the legs already, and try and make it even harder for them.
I think it's Jurkemik who is the player down injured. One of those survivors, 6 of them, in fact, from the 1976 winning side in this European Championship. He's on his feet now. Actually, he took one of those penalties in that thrilling decider with West Germany, the number 3. As did big Ondruš there in the centre of the picture. And Ondruš will take the goal kick. With 20 minutes left. And a chance really for the Czechs to perhaps alleviate some of their disappointment from Wednesday by getting a really resounding victory here over Greece. In all honesty, despite the great spirit that Greece showed in the first half, one really can't see them giving West Germany a great deal of problems on Tuesday. Here's Barmoš. Kapsis being chased by Lička, pressured almost into giving away a corner. But certainly at the moment into giving away the ball. And the luck favouring the Greeks, the ball bouncing back off the corner flag. Although they dispute the award of the throw by the linesman there, Clive White. I think Czechoslovakia are going to take Nehoda off. You can see him on the ball here. He just went over to the bench for a little bit of treatment. And they called Gajdůšek off the bench to warm up. Panenka. Here's Kozák for Vízek. Nehoda trying to limp into the middle. Panenka again. Using Masný. And it ricocheted almost back into Masny's path. Here's Lička. Kozák is in the middle. Nehoda right on the far post. Beaten to it by Iosifidis, who tries to launch the counter-attack himself. Here's Galakos, and Mavros with a chance to cut it back here. And Anastopoulos had darted into the middle. And again, the Olympic Stadium giving its applause to the Greeks. Here's Kozák. You can see Nehoda again there, waiting really for the ball to go out of play. Although Gajdůšek isn't quite ready. Jozef Vengloš has just sat back down on the bench, having given some instruction to Nehoda. And here's Gajdůšek, who started the game against West Germany. Partridge, you can hear from our commentary position, yelling, play on, as the Greeks were still in possession. But Galakos is down injured from that challenge. And here's Vízek. The Czechs still with 10 men, but Masný trying to exploit that turn of pace that he has. Only Lička was in the penalty area, and I think Masny's intention was to try to cut it back towards Vízek.
Martin, I think now we're seeing the Czechs displaying a lot of the skill, style, class and technique that makes them a world-class side when they're on form. They've got the Greeks down, they know they're going to win, and they're really going to drive them into the ground now. And I think there's only a little bit of instant magic from the boy up front also to be able to salvage anything at all now.
Well, at last, Nehoda gets the relief of the referee's whistle, and on comes Gajdůšek. And it's been an unfortunate championship for Nehoda, who was injured just before the start with an injury that was described as being similar to that Kevin Keegan was suffering with, but it's obviously slightly more serious with Nehoda. Although it may be a different injury he's got tonight, but it was that lack of sharpness he's shown in the championship coming from knee trouble in the weeks leading up to the team coming here to Italy. Here's Galakos. Iosifidis has 3 to hit with the cross, but only picks out Seman.
Sostituzione della squadra di Cecoslovacchia, il numero 11 Nehoda.
Here's Kozák.
Sostituito dal numero 9, Gajdůšek.
In from Vízek, and Gajdůšek couldn't control it. And suddenly a bit of extra running from the Greeks with Livapinos. Losing out to Jurkemik. Here's Kapsis. Anastopoulos jumping, but beaten to it by Gögh. And Gajdůšek is in space further forward had Czechoslovakia wanted to play it early. But now they're perhaps content to put on their party pieces a little bit on the ball. Here's Kozák. And that, I'm sure, will bring a glint to the eye of Antonín Panenka, the number 8, who has Gajdůšek alongside him, who has also got a reputation from this sort of range, and he'll be looking to strike dozen free kick specialists, and they literally were pushing each other out of the way, players like Rivellino and Giuseppe. Here's Livapinos. Getting it back from Iosipides. And Vízek finding his legs again to nick that away for Czechoslovakia. The Greeks now, who are a very proud nation, and certainly will not want to go down to a defeat of any greater magnitude. Here's Livapinos. Pushing by Barmoš right under the nose of Partridge to give Greece a free kick. Kapsis is right forward. So too on the far post is Kuis. And Mavros and Anastopoulos also in the centre there. And the flag up for offside as the Czechs show some organisation at the back. Ron, I know you're a great admirer of the technique of the Czech players, but is there any weakness when we're talking about them now as one of the very top nations that you've spotted in a general sense?
I think there's one or two of their better players, or one or two of their more well-known players, i.e. the two people up front, Nehoda, although there's a possibility his injury may be a major factor in that, and Masný have gone a little bit over the hill. And, you know, when your top players, particularly your top strikers, aren't the players they were, that makes it just that bit more difficult for all the other, shall we say, not so well-known players.
It is really their players in key areas, like Panenka, who are aging now. But Kozák, of course, here representative of a younger brigade. And Vízek too. Here's Vízek. Lička has gone into the middle. And it's Gajdůšek trying to get to the byline, but he can't pull it back. So we've 10 minutes left. Galakos. It comes for Panenka. And here's Gögh. On for Masný, and a chance to use his pace. Kapsis is the defender, and the tackle deflecting the ball onto Masný, and behind for the goal kick. Spiros. Here's Livapinos. The Greeks, as we've been saying, play their last game, as it now seems as though it is likely to be, against Holland, against West Germany rather, in Turin, while Czechoslovakia play Holland the same day in Milan. Here's Katsis. A touchdown that might come for Galakos. And here's Iosifidis. The driven cross, tailor-made that time for Ondruš. Back from Anastopoulos. Well, the Greeks certainly not lying down. Perhaps he's wanting to get forward. And there are man light at the back now, as it's taken up by Lička. But certainly, Ron, I think you feel that it's been a good day for the European Championship with that thrilling game that we watched on television, the West Germany-Holland game, and much more open and enterprising play here tonight.
Yeah, well, they're getting to the stage in the competition now where it no longer is a league basis beat. It's sudden death now. Anybody that gets beat or sometimes doesn't get the 2 points is basically out of the competition. I felt that very much was the case in the Germany-Holland game. And OK, this one hasn't got quite the significance, but if the Czechs hadn't won tonight, there's no way they can get anything but, well, a lot of abuse when they get back home.
And certainly, I suppose, if you're the current holders of the European Championship, third place would be something of a disappointment, but it's still something to go for. Here's Kozák. Gajdůšek and Panenka are in the middle, as Lička goes on battling on the far side. One or two of these younger Czech players really playing for a place in the new order of things. The feeling that the players from the 1976 side will start to drift away from the international arena after this competition. And again, as we were saying earlier, the possibility that one or two of them may go abroad, notably Ondruš, who has been linked with Roma, and Panenka, who may go to the German club at Munich 1860. Here's Livapinos. A little touch forward from Xantopoulos. Across from Kyrastas away from Jurkemik. Reaching Livapinos again. And Katsis caught in trouble. But the Czechs happy to take their time pushing forward with Vízek. Kozák. Vízek in support, returning it to Kozák. And no contact was made by Firos. And it's a goal kick to Greece. Although perhaps contact was made on the Greek defender by the boot of Kozák as he tried to sweep the ball back across the face of the goal.
I'm sure Josef Vengloš would be a lot happier now if his side had knocked in another couple of goals, because at the end of the day, it might be all important, depending on how they do against Holland. They seem as if they've just settled for a 3-1. They're well in command. It would be a very, very good thing for them, I feel sure, if they could just get themselves pushed forward, just raise the game a little bit. I'm sure they're capable of it.
Well, they're only facing 10 men at the moment. Before last was the second top scorer in European League competition. Second to Keast of Holland. Given away to Galakos, and almost an opportunity there for Anastopoulos. Turning it in towards Mavros. Jurkemik got there first. And the Greeks now have their full complement with Firos back on the field. Here's Galakos. more as Czechoslovakia get a free kick. Well, I'm sure Ondruš would like to get his name on the score sheet. He's very proud of his international goals. The whistle had gone. Well, still the Greek support stays loyal to the end. And as we move into the final minutes, a word perhaps from Ron Atkinson on the game.
Well, they say class will tell, and I think that's exactly what has happened tonight. The game started very evenly. We saw that the Greeks had promised that they would work themselves to death. They seem as if they've done this. The Czechs, for their part, they've been patient. They've played it about. They've waited their time. And now we're seeing the result of it. I think that overall, I think that both sides will be reasonably satisfied with the result, although I think that the Czechs would have liked at least one more goal.
Well, they've got under 2 minutes now left to try and get it. Here's Anastopoulos. And they're going forward now with some purpose. And it's Lička who may be in here. And Gajdůšek was the supporting player who felt he was being held. And the chance for that goal that Ron Atkinson felt that they wanted. As Masný, I beg his pardon, was breaking on the far side, looking for Gajdůšek. A push on Galakos. Leaving the free kick to Kapsis. This time, Livathinos has made a rare excursion forward into the penalty area, and in fact, it was he who got caught offside. Not a great test in the end for Seman, coming into the Czechoslovakian goal. One wonders how Jozef Vengloš will select his side for their third match against Holland. The crowd whistling. And Partridge has had a check on the watch. Here's with Panenka, Vízek and Nehoda scoring for them to the surprise equaliser really from Anastopoulos. A very brief final word from Ron Atkinson.
Well, as you said earlier, that result was just about right. Pity for the Czechoslovakian point of view, they just didn't nick that last-minute goal, but it wasn't to be.
So that's all from us in the Olympic Stadium from Rome. Back now to Dickie Davis.